What if God is not a master, sculpting destinies with thunder and decree, but a mirror, vast, still, and relentless, reflecting the contours of our hidden selves? What if it is an empty canvas upon which the restless shadows of our pain, hopes, desires, and inherited fears are cast, inviting us to confront the depths we rarely acknowledge? What if the divine is not perched above, commanding obedience, but rooted in the silent ground of our psyche, surfacing whenever we yearn for meaning or flee from chaos? Perhaps we do not believe in God as much as we believe in the self-image we yearn to legitimize. There are ancient tales that whisper into the dusk, stories where a quiet pond is as holy as any cathedral, because therein we glimpse ourselves, not some distant overseer. Throughout history, seekers have wandered mountains and deserts, chasing echoes of the divine outside, only to return and find those echoes resounding in the silence between their own heartbeats. Could it be that every question we ask about God is truly one about our own veiled desires? A yearning for self-reflection, not simply revelation? As we travel inward, each moment of wonder, doubt, and even despair becomes a brushstroke upon that mirror-like canvas, shaping the image we call the sacred and bridging our inner world to the profound. Before belief is a choice, it is already a presence, subtly shaping our earliest perceptions. In childhood, God arrives as a shadow on the wall, imposed not by discovery, but by gentle repetition, embroidered by lullabies sung again and again, each echoing the choreography of ritual from generations past. The answer is handed down before the question can form, wrapped in velvet sacredness, and spoken with ancestral certainty. Perhaps we do not believe in God so much as we believe in the self-reflection we long to justify, the noble mask over our contradictions, the perfected silhouette we cast upon the heavens to reconcile our inner conflicts. Today, we will decipher how identity, culture, and memory shape what we call God, and why questioning this taboo may be the most unsettling, even socially threatening thing you'll ever do, as it challenges the foundations of belonging itself. We are pulling back the curtain on a question more psychological than theological, one that confronts us with the intimidating query, who do you think you are? This question reverberates not only in family homes but through the echoes of faith itself. To question inherited belief is to tug at the very tapestry of belonging, risking the unraveling of shared comfort. Across every culture, rites and narratives entwine personal identity with the divine, cementing psychological towers built from stories, myths, and unspoken laws. In lifting the curtain, we reveal the pulse of doubt, the power to shift paradigms, and ultimately, the courage to explore what lies beyond the familiar horizon of faith, opening doors to deeper self-awareness. The canvas begins in silence. But silence, however, is never empty. It brims with unspoken potential, from the hush of dawn rituals to the crowded silence between anxious prayers. We draw our own colors upon the canvas, like artists painting by candlelight. Each brushstroke, a word, a gesture, a sigh, adds dimension to the still surface. What is worship, if not the moment when silence becomes story, when ordinary meaning turns numinous, evoking a sense of the transcendent? We are both the painter and the viewer, lost in the mists of our own creation, learning to trust the shape we have given to the unknown, layering symbols until it feels familiar enough to worship, and too familiar to question the hand that crafted it, even as we sense its human touch. What we name God is not a discovery, but a dense inheritance, a tapestry woven from emotions, rituals, and whispered narratives passed from trembling hands to ours. It is a projected entity, integrated at the very level of self, like a familiar script we never intended to write, yet can't avoid acting out. A role we never auditioned for, yet we perform without ceasing under the lights of culture and memory. Consider how every language has its own word for the sacred, some gentle, some fierce, some barely spoken aloud. The tapestry is thick, its threads tangled from wars, migrations, epics sung by fireside, and laments sung in shadow. We inherit not only belief, but also the gestures, the silences, and the emotional climate of those who walked before us. Identity is quietly braided with ritual, and with the stories we enact, even as we wonder if we are merely reading lines from a script we cannot recall agreeing to. In this performance, the audience and the actor often trade places, searching for a sense of meaning that fits like borrowed robes, familiar yet not fully our own. Trace the lineage of faith, and you find countless moments in which the sacred was redefined. Festivals recast, old songs given new words, ceremonies blending the practical with the mystical. The perfume of sanctity does not simply mask uncertainty. It becomes the language of our collective longing, helping us find stability amid chaos. What seems eternal is often the slow work of generations, pressing memory into myth and myth into law. Each time we reach for certainty, we touch not infinity, but the trace of those who believed before us, linking past to present in an unbroken chain. In the earliest construction of self, belief is absorbed like air, ambient, omnipresent, never consciously selected, but inhaled with each story told, each gesture repeated. Faith enters unbidden, entwined with the music of belonging. As we grow, it's less a decision than a climate. Ambient, like the atmosphere in which hope and comfort flourish unexamined. And so, we breathe it in day after day, never quite sure where the self ends and the sacred begins, blurring the boundaries of identity. Reverence seeps in not through argument but through rhythm. The murmured cadence of bedtime prayers, the choreography of rituals practiced in unison, the emotional textures embedded in cultural habits. These first marks are less theology than emotional blueprints, patterns coded with the residue of ancestors, longing, fear, and their desperate yearning for order. Long before declarations of doctrine, there is harmony, a feeling of safety and rhythm, a comfort in the melodic patterns of shared hope and ritual, building a foundation that feels innate. What so many call timeless truth is, in reality, a lineage of both hope and dread, a psychological inheritance echoing through the corridors of time, promising safety in the face of chaos. Peer back into history and see the pendulum swing, times of abundance birthing hymns of gratitude, times of crisis forging new prayers for deliverance. Hope and dread entwine, writing their legacy on the minds of each generation. In chaos, truth becomes a fortress. In peace, revelation loses its urgency, yet remains a gentle presence. We inherit these shifting tides, carrying both dreams and shadows forward into a world that forever asks for meaning, perpetuating the cycle of seeking. And so God becomes not a celestial architect, but a mirror, polished by desire and fogged by need, reflecting back the architecture of our inner selves in vivid detail. The deity's face rearranges itself to match the contours of its beholder, protector, judge, redeemer, cosmic confidant. Sometimes gentle, sometimes stern, sometimes the warm sunburst of mercy, sometimes the cold stone of judgment. Our own hearts sculpt these features, projecting longing, fear, and the hunger for connection onto the canvas of our projection. The divine remains profoundly elastic, never fixed, yet always shimmering just beyond the threshold of language, a mirror capable of revealing both our brightest hopes and deepest shadows, and urging us to look closer. This is not theology, it is projection, a psychological lens we create. And every projection, by its nature, tells us more about the one casting the image than the object itself. Do we truly believe in God, or in the edited version of ourselves we wish to sanctify, using the divine as a canvas for our ideals? At the heart of this construct sits fear, not only of wrath but of collapse, the shattering of the meaning structure that keeps us upright. Or is it the crumbling of the foundation upon which we've built our self-understanding, the existential fear of falling, of fragmenting, of losing the scaffolding of meaning, lurks behind every forbidden question, every hesitation to peer into the mirror with open eyes. We cling to the familiar forms, not out of obedience but out of self-preservation, protecting the core of our identity. Sacredness hardens into a contract. Doubt becomes treason. questions become dangerous contagions that threaten the whole. Consider that across cultures, the threat posed by doubt is not merely theological. It is personal, communal, even existential. The contract of belief grants us a sense of solid footing, a bulwark against uncertainty, and yet it quietly demands loyalty. Doubt spreads quickly, unsettling the shared bonds of identity. Those who question take risks not only of isolation, but of descent into the uncharted terrain of truth itself. Yet, in the tension between doubt and faith, we glimpse the possibility of transformation, the spark that can ignite genuine understanding and growth. Language fortifies the illusion, building barriers with words like omnipotent, eternal, and divine will, that rise like cathedral spires, grand, but hollow in their refusal of precision. They pretend to clarify, yet only pad the walls against scrutiny. The more ornate the verse, the more it shields against definition. Thus, language becomes the most delicate and enduring veil for God, obscuring as much as it reveals. Comfort, not truth, is what the weary most often seek, providing solace in an uncertain world. A benevolent overseer drapes warm meaning across an otherwise indifferent cosmos, serving as a blanket against the cold of cosmic silence. Here, the divine is neither architect nor adversary, but shelter, the soft illumination that lets us rest a while in the assurance we are seen, known, and held. In truth, it is comfort that binds us most to the stories we call sacred. Comfort in the face of mystery, allowing us to endure the unknown. But the question persists, is this warmth evidence of some outer sun, or only our own instinct to produce heat against the void? When belief is shaped more by necessity than by truth, it turns away from the reality of what is and bends itself to that which presses to be inwardly known beyond proof or reason. Prioritizing emotional survival over absolute certainty, the collective chorus swells to reinforce the illusion, creating a sense of unity. Consensus passes for proof. Millions cannot all be wrong, can they? But such agreement is not evidence. It is only an echo, amplified with each repetition. Cultural echo chambers repeat the sacred narrative until the very act of questioning sounds like betrayal. Eventually, belief calcifies into a wall where once there had been a window. Curiosity is redirected, not inward toward doubt, but outward toward defense. To declare a thing divine is to ring it with barbed wire, immune from inspection. And in so doing, we exchange understanding for obedience, trading exploration for false sense of security. To question God is not blasphemy. It is to place a hand upon the very threads holding the self together and be willing to pull, testing the fabric of our being. Belief is not just an idea. It is the scaffold of identity, the framework that supports our sense of self. To challenge it is not merely to question theology, it is to risk the dismantling of who you are, inviting a profound reconstruction. Perhaps God waits not atop some shining peak, but wears the mask of our oldest fears and most enduring desires, hidden within our own psyche. In seeking the divine, we may find not the infinite, but a mirror rimmed with cultural ornament, polished by the slow hands of memory, reflecting back our shared human story. If you walk away from this uncertain, whether you have seen God or only the silhouette of your conditioning, know this, that is not confusion. It is clarity's first breath, a step toward deeper insight. The sacred is not destroyed by questions. It is sharpened, refined, made truer. And in a world of spectacle and premature certainty, perhaps doubt, honest, uncomfortable, luminous doubt, is the last holy fire we still know. Sometimes the question emerges in daylight, woven through chatter and laughter. Sometimes it waits for us in the hush before sleep, when distractions fade and our truest doubts whisper. To wrestle with this ache is not to be broken by faith, but to be forged by it, to shape wisdom from the sparks thrown off by genuine curiosity. The human spirit yearns not for silence, but for echo, for the dialogue between what we know and what we dare to imagine. Thank you for watching. If this journey stirred in you a question, a doubt, or a pull toward deeper curiosity, I invite you to walk further with me. Subscribe, join the dialogue, sense ideas, breathe through conversations, share your reflections or disagreements, and send these words to someone who also seeks language for their questions. Let us keep unraveling together.